Hey everybody, this is Andrea Paquette, and I am coming to you today from Souk, British Columbia, where I live on Vancouver Island. I'm very excited to welcome to the Stigma-Free Society Facebook Live, Tasha. Welcome, very happy to have you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much.
Excellent. So I thought first and foremost, I would give a little bit of information about the Stigma-Free Society and who we are for our people watching out there. The Stigma-Free Society is a Canadian registered charity for the last 12 years, and we focus in on awareness, understanding, and the acceptance of ourselves and other people. And we also really focus in on mental health education for young people. We have been doing so much over the last year, and we've been moving into BC North. And so this is very exciting to have Tasha here all the way from Fort St. John, correct?
Yes.
And yeah, and I thought what I could do is share your bio with everybody, and then we can learn more about you, the work you do, and also some information about mental health in the North and some of the unique challenges and things that face people in rural BC and in rural Canada as well. So I'll start off by saying Tasha is a mental health clinician with over 7 years of clinical experience who proficiently translates knowledge and social skills into transformative and meaningful results. She does this while fulfilling a passion for empowering others and putting the welfare of her clients, colleagues, and community first. She is adept in different practices and areas while collaborating with other healthcare practitioners. Tasha is experienced in providing group facilitation, including presenting information sessions and support groups for a variety of service providers and community members. Lastly, she holds a master's degree in general psychology from the University of Phoenix and BA in social work from UVic. I also got my degree at UVic, Tasha, so
Did you?
it's a fellow alumni. So yeah, definitely. I'm just very excited to have you here today as we've been reaching out to various community members in Northern British Columbia. And I thought what we could start with, I know I gave a little bit about your bio, but I was wondering if you could tell people a little bit more about yourself and why you came to this interview today and what interests you about mental health.
Okay. So I've worked in the field for around 20 years in different counseling positions. I've worked as a family support worker, supporting families who struggle with a variety of different issues such as parenting, budgeting, management of finances, those kind of things. And then I also worked as a children who witness violence worker, where I worked with children who witnessed some form of abuse in their home. I then moved to NENAN, which is an Aboriginal agency where I was a mental health support worker. And so I worked in community with children and youth who struggled with mental health concerns, poverty concerns, a variety of different issues. I then moved on to be a clinician at Child and Youth Mental Health, again, where I worked with children and youth who struggle with mental health. So I find that my passion for mental health came due to I have had some family members who struggled with mental health concerns, but I've also had some friends who have struggled with mental health, and I have seen the processes that these loved ones of mine have had to go through, the struggles that they had to deal with. So I wanted to be a part of the solution, a part of the helping with reducing stigma around, teaching skills and connecting people to resources that could help with mental health, so that people with mental health can move forward in a positive direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I was wondering as well, in your current role, working in the mental health wellness worker at the school district 60 in Fort St. John. What kind of challenges do you see in young people in the rural community? What are they facing that maybe is it unique than their urban counterparts, or what are you seeing up there?
So I think a big one right now for us is just a lack of resources. So due to COVID, I think COVID really played havoc on people's mental health, especially youth, because they lacked the connection to a lot of positive coping skills, social connections. They weren't allowed to do extracurricular activities. So these healthy coping mechanisms were taken away, and also isolation is was a big thing. People weren't allowed to do too much during COVID. So I really find that there was an increase in anxiety and depression for sure in the rural communities. Unfortunately, we have a very high demand, but not a lot of resources. So there is a lot of pressure being put on the support people that we do have here, but also the support people within the school district. So, school counselors' caseloads are a lot higher than they used to be, and a lot
Mm,
more they are a lot have a more complications. So it's not just they have mental health, it's, there's housing issues or there's employment issues. So, parents are struggling with a variety of different things, which we know impacts the children. So it's just a constant circle or cycle of things going on for the young people here in Fort St. John. And with the lack of resources, it's a real struggle to get people connected to what they need.
yeah. Has there been any type of innovation or with remote medical help or doctors or any kind of help that has come out of remote medical? Has this been a thing at all in the north, and has it helped at all?
I think that due to Zoom, you do have a lot of connections with, I think many agencies have started doing online information sessions for parents, for children, to connect them to something. I think it has been it has increased the amount of resources that people in rural areas can be connected to. I think the issue is when it gets to be out like suicide or suicide prevention. That's when it gets a bit more tricky because if you're on Zoom, there's a lot of things that you can't pick up. So a lot of agencies, again, which makes sense, would prefer someone being connected to, say, a youth that is struggles with suicidal ideation, to a worker here in town so that we can do constant check-ins, if they do present at hospital, then their worker can go into the hospital and do a face-to-face with them.
Right.
So again, when those things come up, Zoom isn't as helpful as, say, if you're dealing with somebody with um, lower level anxiety or lower level depression. It's the
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's the higher risk kids that I find, Zoom isn't necessarily useful for, just because, again, they may not have access to that
Yeah.
support either, right? So, low-income families, that's another issue, they may not have internet services. So, again, I think there's a big population that we're missing, even though, resources have increased.
Yeah. And so, for Indigenous populations and communities, it sounds like you have done a lot of work in these communities and perhaps even continue to do so. And I was wondering, I know you just mentioned the lack of resources and limitations on internet access. So, is this affecting the Indigenous communities? And if so, what kind of unique challenges do they face when it comes to their mental health?
So I think, unfortunately, Indigenous communities do face twice as many roadblocks as other people do because of communities can tend to be out of town. So there's travel issues, there's transportation issues, there's even more isolation because, again, you're not coming into town as much due to COVID. So you're really not connecting to people at all. The other issue that we find here in Fort St. John is that there is no high school or middle school out in community. So sometimes they will have elementary schools, but sometimes they don't. So what will happen is if they don't have a school in community, they will be billeted in town. So they will stay with a family who has signed up to take someone from community for the school year. So they will be in town with this family for 5 days, and then they have a choice to go back out to community for the weekend. The issue is, though, is that there's isolation from community. Now they're not connected to any of the people that they are close to, their family members, their aunts and uncles. So that can also be um, isolation, like double the amount of isolation. And so, again, we'll find that a lot of times what will happen is that Indigenous children and youth will stop attending school
Mm,
because
okay.
they miss that connection with their community, which makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So the system doesn't necessarily take into account some of those deeper connections that Indigenous children have with their communities and their family members.
Definitely, definitely. Thanks for sharing that. I feel like it's really important to share education, and especially for people like me, who live on Vancouver Island near Victoria. I feel like I'm always wanting to learn more. And I think at the Stigma-Free Society, it's really important that we have people like you to share this type of very valuable information, because a lot of us don't know what is going on in northern BC. And I was curious, as a Stigma-Free Society president, we talk about stigma a lot, obviously, especially in the face of mental illness, but other stigmas as well. But starting out with stigma of mental illness, do you find this is a problem in BC North? Do you think it's rampant? Do you think people are really embracing mental illness, or how does this look in your communities?
So I will have to say that I have found that there has definitely been a shift in regards to mental health concerns and some of the struggles that people face when they have a mental health concern. I find that it's not as hidden as it used to be, but I still find that there is quite a bit of stigma that comes along with the especially specific mental health concerns like schizophrenia, borderline personalities. Those ones still have a real strong negative stigma attached to them.
Mhm.
Anxiety, I find, is not as bad as it used to be. Same with depression, but you still underneath find that there is people still saying, if you just did more, it would be okay. You should just go to school; it'll make things better. You won't have anxiety anymore. So I do feel that we still have that stigma here for sure.
Mhm.
I think that community support workers have definitely been getting in there to different agencies and different community events to educate and give awareness around mental health, which I think has definitely reduced some of the stigma that is
Yeah.
associated to mental health for sure.
Well, it's good to see, people taking action like yourself and your colleagues. What kind of event? I'm just really curious. Like, if you had an awareness event, what's an example of one?
So, I know that, when I was at Child and Youth Mental Health, one of my coworkers and myself went into schools, and we did some awareness around anxiety and depression, with youth, at our middle schools. We have also done anything to do with, say, the trade show. You can definitely find some people from, say, adult mental health or even child and youth mental health that will give information around what anxiety is, when you should be concerned.
Mhm.
Here's some contact information for you. And so we do try to connect to some of these events so that parents can also get the information they need to help support their kids, because I think at times parents can feel lost. And so if
Yeah,
they know
no,
who they can connect to, or resources even online, then they're feeling more supported and more empowered to help with
yeah.
what's going on with their kids.
Yeah, and that's what we're really trying to do at Stigma-Free Society is really bring our student mental health toolkit and virtual presentations even more into the north now that we have that reach and that ability remotely. And we always have presenters, often who are younger, share their personal stories of dealing with mental illness, who have lived it, and
Mhm.
bringing those connections to other youth. So we'd love to talk to you about that later.
Well, I think
And
that's a great way, right? If you can jump
yeah,
online and connect with somebody that knows the struggle or can understand where you're coming from, that's a totally different view than, say, a counselor coming in saying, "Okay, this is what we need to do to change it." I think
yeah.
just hearing somebody else say and knowing that you're not the only one, I think can make a profound impact on a young person for sure.
Yeah, and always igniting that hope and resilience, right? That
Mhm,
people can get through this. And even though people do say it a lot, like it's okay to not be okay, but I actually really like that saying. I find
mhm,
that it sits well with people, and it's sometimes, well, obviously, anytime someone's struggling, it's okay to feel that way.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, as well, I was going to ask you about the response from parents in the work that you do, and what kind of, you just mentioned that, funny enough, what kind of work do you do with parents and some of the concerns they may have around their children having mental health issues? Is there anything particular for them where people who are parents in BC North can get some support?
So we do have a variety of different private counselors here in Fort St. John. We also have child and youth mental health. We have adult mental health and addictions. So again, we, the school district, and the other social emotional learning workers have done some parenting groups in regards to basic anxiety concerns, when it becomes an issue and when, it's pretty normal. And then just other parenting groups that we have are normally online that we offer. Like a good one that I've given to parents is Rolling with ADHD through Kelty Mental Health. And then obviously the Stigma-Free, because you can find a lot of resources on your guys' website that will help
Yeah.
parents come up with a plan moving forward with their children.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's wonderful. And I was wondering as well too, like often at Stigma Free Society, we talk about a stigma in the workplace as an example. Are there any initiatives that are going on in School District 60 to perhaps create open spaces in, the workplace, or is there any type of initiative that you've ever employed in that respect?
Um, well, I think we're just trying to, at this point, because the position is so new, is just creating awareness around mental health. So these are some things that you can do to improve your mental health. So I've been working quite a bit with teachers just in regards to stress, anxiety. When you're starting, like right before report cards, we know that's a stressful time. So what are some things that you can do to increase your self care? To help
Yeah,
reduce some of the things that come along with that. Same with parents. We really like to talk to them about, okay, so, this and this has happened. So to be able to support your child, you also need to take care of yourself. So here's some things that you can try that you can support yourself with. So
exactly.
it was more about awareness at this point, and then teaching the younger kids about mental health and how that can affect you and when they can be concerned and who they should talk to, their parents or the school counselor, those kind of things. And I think by educating younger children, we are increasing the awareness, but also reducing the stigma of mental health because
Mhm.
it's become a norm now. This is just
Yeah,
something we learn in school. If these are concerns, then these are the people that I can contact. It's not such a taboo. It's not such a, don't talk about that. Um, and so I think that that's really the focus right now, at the beginning of these newer positions is just awareness and making it comfortable and making a safe space for people to talk about mental health and that
yeah.
and what comes along with that.
Why else do you think it's important to start young? I like having this conversation. I find it's really interesting to get other people's perspectives. Like, why is it important?
I think because a lot of kids not only um, need to be aware of that. But anxiety can happen from very, very young. So I think if you have an understanding of what's going on in your body, you have an understanding of what and why these things are happening to you, it's not so scary. It's not something that you need to hide from. It's like, okay, this is how I'm feeling. I need to use my coping mechanisms, or I can touch base with my mom and she can help me work through it. But also, young kids may have parents at home that struggle with mental health concerns. And so for them to have a little bit more empowerment around that and understanding around that, I think that can help the family as a whole, moving forward, if they have an understanding of what may be going on. Or, oh, you know what, that makes sense. That sometimes my mom, will, stay in bed for a few days. And now I understand that that's called depression. It doesn't have anything to do with me. It's not me
Yeah.
as the child doing anything wrong.
Well, you're bringing me back to my own childhood. My mother has schizoaffective disorder, which is a type of combination between bipolar and schizophrenia. And she would go away for 2 weeks, and there was never any type of conversation about it because my dad didn't even know what to say, I think. And,
Yes.
back in the 80s, like things were swept under the rug a lot, and a lot of people just didn't talk about mental health. So I really love your point about it being okay. And it's not about me that my mom is sick, and it's okay to talk about it at home. Because as a child, many of us are wishing, wow, I wish they just would talk to me about it and I wouldn't feel so
Mhm.
bad about it as I got older, right?
Yeah. Well, then
Yeah.
I think it also, even if it's not okay to talk at home, they know that it's okay to talk at school.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they can come and say, "Well, you know what? My mom, hasn't, been getting out of bed for the last couple days, and, so I think she's, on a downward spiral," or whatever it is that they would say. So, I think it's important for them to have somewhere that they can discuss it so they're not feeling like they are invisible, I think, at times.
Yeah.
Or that they just come up with different stories, and unfortunately, most of the time, it's not a great story, and it has something negative to do with them. So if we're
Yeah.
allowing them space to discuss these things and to, um, speak freely, then I think
Mhm.
we can help them, empower them to move forward and have an understanding of what that, you know, this
Yeah.
doesn't have anything to do with me, or, there's nothing I can do. Me getting straight A's isn't going to help me. You
Yeah.
yeah.
That's so true. And I was thinking about collaboration and how I was thinking about parents. We have a parent section in the student mental health toolkit, but we also have educators and school counselors and then youth alike. And I was wondering about collaboration. Like, do you use that model within the work that you do? What kind of people do you bring in to support a young person? So I was just curious about your model and what you feel is really useful, like what kind of people to include, because it's just such a vast thing, right?
It is. So if we're having meetings in regards to, say, a young person that's struggling at school, for myself, I definitely connect with the important people that are in that child's life. So, let's say, obviously, the parents, if there's an outside agency connected, like, what are you doing with them? How can we use the same language at school? What's working for them? So that it's not, so overwhelming for the child. Because if you're using different language all over the place, it can get very confusing and it can be overwhelming. So I find if you're connecting with the parent and you're connecting with the outside agency and then the school, all of you can work collaboratively to use the same language and use the same tips and skills, um, so that everybody's on the same page. I think that's huge. Is that when everybody's on the same page, everybody's supporting, the child in the same way, then, you can really see some impact around
Yeah.
that. So the people that we would have involved would be, again, a private counselor, say child and youth mental health. If there's anybody working specifically with the parent on parenting concerns or how to deal with the mental health, we would involve them as well. Um, we would involve the classroom teacher because, again, that person is with them for 6 hours a day. We would invite, the administrators because, again, if there's any behavior concerns, then they are the ones usually dealing with the behavior concerns. If the young person is Indigenous, we always invite the Indigenous support worker to be involved. So if there's any way that we can connect that young person to cultural events or different cultural things that can be taught in the classroom or individually. So we really do like to do the wraparound approach with the
Yeah.
kids and everybody involved so that we can support the best we can, because we all know that if we can have a really good support network for the young person, they're going to move through the school system in a way better way.
Yeah. Okay, well, in closing, thank you so much. I just want to ask you one last thing. Do you have any advice for people out there who are facing lack of resources, people who are frustrated? Is there any type of, nuggets of wisdom or encouragement that you can put out there for people who are struggling with trying to take care of their mental health or that of their family?
Yes, I think really online resources are a really good way to connect with at least something. Some good coping mechanisms is key. So, Kelty Mental Health, Stigma-Free is a good one. BC Children's, these are all, Anxiety Canada are all really good websites that can give youth uh, some skills and some tips that they can use when they're feeling anxious or depressed. So I think really right now at this point, due to the lack of resources, being open to look up some of these websites and getting connected to the resources they have. And again, there may be even more resources on these websites that I am unaware of. So if you scroll through some of these websites, it's like, oh, you can find more information at this website and this website. So those I know of and have used stuff off of those websites. So those are going to be the ones that I speak to. But again, there could be many more resources on those that have been researched and looked at to make sure that they have the right information. So those are the sites you want, not the, just random ones.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch out there, isn't there? And it's
There
really
is.
good
Yeah,
to
and you just need to
verify.
be cautious.
Yeah,
Yeah, cautious
yeah,
about what your information you're using.
yes. That's a really good point for sure. And at Stigma-Free Society, we're here to help. We really want to make even more inroads. We've partnered with School District 60, which is very exciting. We got a little bit of a United Way grant to expand our toolkit to make it more relevant to Indigenous communities and rural communities and youth living up north. So I was hoping you could stay on the call, Tasha.
Okay.
And is there any last words you'd like to share?
No, I really thank you so much for inviting me on, and I really appreciate being able to discuss some of the concerns that um, are presented to our youth here in the North, because I think that it's a lot different than, say, what youth on Vancouver Island may face.
Yes, exactly, definitely. We all have a lot to learn in all over BC and Canada for
Exactly.
sure. And I'm very open to learning and really appreciate your time.
Thank
So
you.
thank you everybody for watching our Facebook Live, whether you're watching it now or after the fact, please share. Please visit stigmafreesociety.com. We really appreciate your support and I hope everybody has an amazing day. So thank you very much again, Tasha, and thank you everybody for watching.
Thanks.
Bye now.